2024 felt a little bit for video games. It felt like almost everybody got really tired of live service games. I know Concord is the one that everybody loves to clown on, but Suicide Squad, Skull and Bones, and X-Defiant were just as creatively bankrupt and greedy in my opinion. But looking back at 2024, I realized that I played a lot more good stuff than I remembered. Both Hades 2 and Path of Exile 2 launched into early access and were already pretty magnificent, despite not even being fully released yet. Are you summoning some more of your little goons?
Oh, no. We now have the Goon Squad.
I'm really looking forward to both of these fully launching. That's not to say there were no fun AAA games though. Elden Ring was my most played game last year. Again, Shadow of the Erdtree was a fucking blast and featured one of my favorite From Software bosses of all time. We also still got a metric fuck ton of remakes and remasters. Could we pull up the list, please? Holy shit. The Tomb Raider Remastered trilogy was pretty neat. While the update is mostly high quality, the cutscenes have been upscaled with machine learning, which can look like a mess, though thankfully there's an option to turn it off. I really appreciate it when these re-releases let you instantly switch back and forth between the old and new graphics. Oh yes, what a beautiful piece of art. I stand corrected. But enough about old crap from 1996, let's talk about old crap from 2024. Here's my favorite games of... Shadows of Doubt is a noir cyberpunk detective simulator. What's it simulating? Everything! The game randomly generates not only its map, but also each individual in it, giving every NPC relationships, jobs, and sometimes criminal thoughts. You are a washed-up detective in this world. I named mine Hugh Dunnett. You investigate cases by uncovering a wide array of clues, going from fingerprints, witness interviews, to breaking and entering for camera footage. I mean, while I'm here, I might as well get some extra payment. The problem with many detective games is that they have absolutely zero replay value, because once you beat them, you know what's up.
They was working on the tires. That's all that was took.
Since Shadows of Doubt randomly generates everything about the cases, you don't have that problem. Of course, doing that sounds like the recipe for a buggy disaster, but lo and behold, the devs made it work. Mostly. The NPCs might feel a bit glitchy at times, but the cases themselves always work pretty well. And once I do actually figure out a case, I feel like an interdimensional genius. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is an extremely simple game, and sometimes that's all you want. You play as a giant Duplo character and murder the shit out of aliens. The devs have significantly improved gameplay over the first installment. Instead of stationary shootouts with a few goblins, the game now offers a much more dynamic blend of melee and ranged combat that encourages charging in. Enemies also feel much more vicious, though I do think there still could have been more weapon and enemy variety. The story's kinda whatever, but that's okay. This isn't exactly the game where you need to follow the story all that much. There's a flying little baby here. I think that's on our side. Look at that.
Oh my god, that's cursed. I love it. I love it.
It also has a lot of fun customization that mostly doesn't cost extra. It's an immensely fun shooter, whether you're playing it by yourself or in co-op. Look at these adorable little manlets.
Yes, manlets. Slice and dice, baby.
Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is a neatly designed Metroidvania, with a focus less on puzzles and more on its stylish combat. You play as the titular Prince of Persia's bodyguard named Sargon, who's out to rescue the prince. It seems the two share a wardrobe though. A lot of Metroidvanias start you off as a weak little dude and only gradually make you strong. Sargon already feels pretty powerful from the beginning, which is a very nice change of pace. All the boss fights are really memorable and can honestly be really tough, which I didn't expect. Apart from the great combat, there's also some great subtle innovations to the Metroidvania genre. For example, being able to take screenshots of locations and then marking them on your map. Trust me, it's super convenient for people who have the sense of direction of a goldfish. Like me. The writing isn't amazing, but it does its job. At least all the characters are interesting enough, and the story is presented with some pizzazz and great style. It's a fucking amazing game on its own, and my favorite Ubisoft game since... when did Rayman Legends come out? Oh my. In Children of the Sun, you play as an insane lady who escaped an even more insane cult. Now she's out to murder all of its members. With a single bullet. Instead of getting multiple shots like most sniper games, you telekinetically control the bullet to hit multiple targets. The challenge comes from getting them all one by one while avoiding obstacles. Instead of just mindlessly shooting everyone, it's much more about figuring out the optimal path to take out all your targets. Oh. The gameplay is something really fresh, and the stories and cutscenes have a wonderful psychedelic tone to them. With barely any dialogue, we understand how insidious the cult leader is and how batshit insane the main character is. Over time, you unlock more telekinetic powers for your bullets, making your shooting even fancier. In recent years, some of my friends were slowly getting me into some nice and relaxing strategy games, so I decided to give Frostpunk 2 a try. You control the last survivors of the Frost Apocalypse. You gotta keep them ovens running and get your people through the winter. At all costs. All costs. While it's long as fuck, the tutorial does a great job of easing you into most mechanics. It's fun figuring out the most efficient way to build your town, balancing warmth for everyone while keeping pollution levels relatively low. I also really love the detail that you can zoom in all the way to look at your citizens. Your other task in this game is to appease all political factions. You can strategically manipulate them so that they don't cut your funding, which makes you feel like a complete sociopath. You know, in case child labor didn't do it for you.
The proposed law has been approved.
If you already have a little experience with the genre, I certainly recommend it. As I said in my video about it, I think the Plucky Squire is one of the most charming little games of the year. It's so full with creativity, especially the interaction between the 2D and 3D worlds, and the blending of different art styles really impressed me. The vast amount of ideas in this game can be to its disadvantage though, as there are some sections that feel kinda unpolished, even after it was updated a bunch. However, don't let that discourage you from trying it out. It's a fun, memorable little experience that I think almost anybody could enjoy. If there's two things that are just not for me, it's digital card games and calculating. So imagine my surprise when I realized that I had played Balatro for like 20 hours. It's a roguelike where your goal is to build a strong deck of cards that you can strategically combine with special jokers for a maximum combo. It's incredibly easy to get into, even for people who have absolutely no idea about poker or card games in general. It has lovely audio and visual feedback that makes it a joy to understand its simple mechanics. However, behind its simple facade, it hides incredibly deep gameplay that will keep true freaks playing for 200 plus hours. In essence, it's the true sequel to Solitaire. Full disclosure, I haven't beaten this game and only played it at friends' houses because I don't own the space marker. However, Astro Bot is really something special. It plays like many classic 3D platformers, but every single level has some wonderful ideas for either combat, traversal, or theming to keep things interesting. The power-ups are really the highlight for me. You got the frog gloves, that's a classic. You can become a sponge, of course. And my favorite is probably this little elephant thing that spawns platforms beneath you. This game is also so polished. The physics are purely for show-off, but they're so fucking neat. It's a AAA game that actually uses its budget to create things that you haven't seen a million times, that feels like it was made with a true passion for games. I do think that some of the Sony reference stuff can be a bit much. Sure, I get a kick out of some of these characters, but it kinda lacks substance. Though I did really enjoy when they directly parodied the gameplay of other series. The part in the God of War level where you do the classic squeeze through gap thing, that made me laugh. I really enjoyed this game. I do hope that they continue the series and that Astro Bot gets to be more of its own thing. At first glance, Animal Well resembles a lot of other Metroidvanias. Especially the player character looks really non-distinct. However, it quickly establishes a unique identity of its own through its design. The game barely needs to give you any tutorials at all because it fully trusts the player's curiosity and eagerness to experiment. While solving the puzzles, you'll realize that every item has multiple uses, which are often not immediately obvious. I especially love the bubble wand, that thing's just genius. This makes discovering the many paths in this game feel like a personal achievement instead of following a rigid path. What adds even more is that there's almost no true dead ends in this game. Every little minute path will lead you to some sort of secret. And when it comes to the look, I think that the simple pixel art is really elevated by the beautiful lighting and smoke effects. This is genuinely the game that I wish to spoil the least on this list, because the discovery in it is magnificent. However, there's one more thing I want to show you. This is fucking amazing. Neva is an absolutely gorgeous game that follows a lady raising her wolf companion named
Neva. Neva.
It's a very short game with a very simple story. Throughout the game, all you do is raise your pup in this lush world while fighting monsters that kinda look like No-Face. But what makes it work are not just the absolutely gorgeous visuals and music, but also the gameplay progression. We don't just get to see the relationship between these two characters grow, but also experience how it evolves through gameplay. At first, you have minimal gameplay mechanics, and more often than not, you have to help your wolf to traverse the level. But as it grows up, both of you unlock more and more abilities, turning the game into a proper action platformer. The level design is exceptional, not only because of the visuals, but the layout and thoughtfully crafted puzzles. As mentioned, the story is really simple, sometimes to the point of being predictable, but it's executed so well that it's still lovely to experience. However, it does make me wonder how it would turn out if the studio attempted to make a game with a more complex and unique story. As is, Neva is absolutely beautiful, and the game that has stuck with me most throughout 2024. It turns out 2024 was a much more interesting year for games than I initially thought. Even besides the kind of games that I'm into, there was a bunch of neat stuff. I really hope you found something in this list that caught your interest. Making videos on the channel the past year was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate all the feedback you've given me. I already have a bunch of games lined up for future videos, but if there's anything you'd like me to cover, feel free to let me know. Until then, I hope you have a great time. That was that. Now it's just time to relax and... What the fuck? Oh my goodness. It's a $60 paperweight.